Welcome or welcome back. This is Amy with Amy Cat's Colors. Thanks for joining me on this video. I will be talking about using inexpensive watercolor as a base in my first page ever in Emily Leda Hall Oberg's Fairy Tales and Folklores. And it's a gorgeous coloring book that was recently republished this year in 2024. So I've been looking forward to coloring in this one and was looking forward to trying a new technique today. So let me take a seat here. So I have not yet invested in a professional or expensive watercolor set. Other than, you could say, I have the Kuretake metallic rainbow set of watercolors. And that's because, I am technique wise, I'm somewhat really a beginner or an amateur when it comes to coloring. I really have just been coloring without a whole lot of technique other than just light and hard pressure with a little bit of blending. So watercolor this year in coloring has been completely new to me, although I know it's not new to the hobby. So it's been interesting. I was waiting. I didn't want to just run out and buy a bunch of watercolor, not knowing if it was something that I was going to enjoy or not. So, it kind of makes sense, right? Unlike with the alcohol markers would be a good example. I knew that I love coloring with markers and that I would really enjoy that process. So I wanted to take care with what I was choosing quality wise and splurge a little bit on alcohol markers. Same thing with colored pencil. And that's where I started, was with Prismacolor with colored pencil. So watercolor's new to me, and I've really enjoyed watching you all's videos. For those of you who are content creators on YouTube, or sharing your photos on Instagram, I've enjoyed seeing what one can do with watercolors. I've done a couple pages in a couple different books with just watercolor as a background to kind of give a similar effect to if you were using some type of stamping ink, just to give it a little bit of color in the background. I've also used colored pencil to do the same effect. Anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at. And not all that long ago, I did purchase this set of inexpensive watercolor, the chalky watercolor squares from Target. This is the brand Mondo Llama that is exclusive to Target, I think. And when we were in the store, I just liked the packaging of it. I just liked the way that this one was kind of put together. So, and I liked that there were this many colors. So we got this not that long ago, maybe a couple months ago, and I've been using it. I used it in, I think, a Disney portrait block book from Hatchet Heroes. I used the blue to do background, but I hadn't really used watercolor to base anything yet. So that's what I did. And I wasn't actually going to make a video on this, but after spending a couple hours on this morning, and let me show you my first page. It's this one here. So after spending a couple hours on this morning while watching some other YouTube videos, I was like, you know, we gotta talk about this at least for a little bit in like a color and chat, because I having never done this before, and I'm telling you, I'm no expert. I thought this looked great. I like it so much that I don't even know that I want to go over it with colored pencil and highlight and shade and all this. I did go ahead and add, because I was really anxious to do it, the glitter gel pen on the little bits on the flower, and then also on their sweater scarves, a little bit of the gold. So, and actually the other reason why I went ahead and did that was because I was debating whether I was going to do another color here on their sweater, the sweater scarf. And I didn't want to pick something that would look weird once the gold was on there, because I knew I wanted to do the gold accent glitter gel. So I was like, well, let me put that down, and then I'll think about the other color that I'm going to add there. But I was so super impressed with how this turned out. And I'm going to take several pictures of it just in case I totally mess it up with with the next phase. But you know, usually when you start with just the watercolor, it's your ugly phase. This is not ugly to me at all. I actually like how it, like, there's some imperfections. But it's, to me, that's the whole thing of the watercolor. I think it looks really good. And it does have that like texture a little bit, like almost like how an acrylic paint would leave the page. And there's a little bit of chalkiness, but I love, you can control. So I felt, and you know, this paper is like an exception, because the paper in this book is phenomenal. And it does really well. So you're not going to have this experience with the cheaper watercolor in every book, for sure. I mean, I recognize that. But I will say this. You could, even after it dried to a certain degree, you could move it around. So like if you see, like, for example, in some of these petals where there's light and dark, and let's just say that you didn't like that, or that you wanted to spread it out and make it more even, or eliminate some of the streakiness or whatever, you can do that all day long with these watercolors and on this paper. It was really cool. But I just think this is so beautiful. And okay, I actually did the fur first. I transferred something here at the bottom of the page. I don't know if you see it. It was blue. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to end up making, I think, some kind of ground, either in like a dark gray or brown, but something transferred from my hand, because now I got like a blue. I hate that. And I tried erasing it, but I did the fur on the fox first, and I just used, my exact one is not here the table. I just used a water brush pen and flicked, not really flicked, but just like worked my brush to make it look like fur. And because I went back to the, what do you call it? The watercolor square, the brick, to reapply some of the paint. Like, it started out dark, but then went light. Started dark and then went light. And it looks cool though. I feel like it looks like I did that on purpose. Right? Like, I don't know. It's just, to me, it gave it a really cool texture. I like how it looks. And I did that in most of the spaces. I felt like I had good control over it. So, and it looks like fur to me. It's not perfect. I know it's not perfect. And I'm not an expert by any means, but I just thought this looked so pretty. So that's exciting. And I really enjoyed this, and I wasn't sure that I would, and that's why I was like, well, let's try this out. Let's even play around. I'm going to start basing. I have another page picked out for the month that I would like to do. I mean, there's many of them in here that I'd like to do, but the whole thing with basing with the watercolor was very enjoyable, and I do feel like it goes by a little more quickly than if I had just done the whole thing in pencil. And now, you know, in this same video, I will flash forward to after I'm finished with going in with pencil and shading a little bit, and hopefully that doesn't take away from what I've already done. But this is gorgeous. I will after I, you know, color in, I have a few more things to color in, like the noses and the ears, but once I'm done with that, I will take a picture as if I'm done, just in case I screw it up. Hopefully I don't. But I thought this looked really, really, I was so surprised. This is not, I have based things with acrylic paint before, like watered down acrylic paint in the Kirby books. And that, I mean, it looks cool, but you can tell it's not a finish. Like, it's an in process, you know, page at that point. You can tell that, I mean, it's the ugly phase or whatever, but it's not really ugly. But this was like, man, you could just say this is finished if you wanted to, I think. But anyway, what else did I learn from doing this? So, the color palette. So, you know, I've already done one page or two with a traditional autumnal, I'm tired, guys. It's the end of the day. Fall color palette. But you know, everything that you color for the season doesn't have to be red, yellow, orange, brown, you know, the traditional autumn colors. And for this one, I mean, clearly it's a cold weather scene because the foxes are wearing sweater and a scarf. So I wanted to do something different. I don't want to keep using, although I love fall colors, are my favorite, really. I didn't want to color everything this month with orange, maroon, red, yellow. So I went with jewel tones, and it is my intent to go, I mean, these are watercolors after all. It is my intent to go back in here and darken them up a little bit, because that's what I was going for. But it's still pretty the way it is. Oh, the other thing that was really weird was the purple that I picked. It's this darkest purple here, and because that's what I was going for. Actually, the pink is this color, the mauve, the dark dusty rose color, and then that's the purple. The purple, once it dries, it looks like a tie-dye effect. Like, it's two different pigments in this paint. There is a pink and there's a purple, and it looks like a swirl. And that was a surprise. I mean, it looks cool, but it was really weird because I didn't think that the paint was like that. I don't know if you can see what it did. Like, it dried like it was two different colors in there. Like, what? That was a little unexpected. And maybe that's probably just part of it being this cheaper paint. But I think for being an accessible, inexpensive paint set, that these actually work really well. So, oh look, hi. So yeah, I am really happy and excited to do some more with watercolor. So it's just, I was just so pleased with how this looks. So anyhow, the other thing about this book, or getting started in this book, or started coloring things this month in general, has been, I really was worried I was going to get stuck in this. So it's really satisfying to do the alcohol marker on like the Amazon paper in the easy, cozy books. I really thought I was going to get stuck on this loop of like just wanting to do those and nothing else, or like colored by number and nothing else this month. So I wanted to get back into these books, and I think the thing that was holding me back, and I know many colorists have talked about this, is that it's just being extremely intimidated by it. When you love the artwork so much like we all do, it can be extremely intimidating to even just get started because you don't want to mess it up. But, you know, to that, I would say, yep, I think we all feel that way. We all get that way. Well, most of us, not everyone, but a lot of us do get that way. And when I reflected back to what I think are my best pages that I've colored in this year, they were completely unplanned. I was completely free in my choices, and I was just playing around with new mediums or new techniques, and I really wasn't worried, I guess, about any specific challenge or hashtag or buddy color or anything like that. But my best pages have been just completely like, let me just play around and see what happens. And I feel like that's how a lot of the best works of art are, right? They're like happy little accidents, or they're just, it translates onto paper, your creativity and your freedom, when you're really just having fun. But I noticed that for me for this year was that I felt like, man, my best work has been when I haven't had any specific thing that I was really trying to do, but just playing around. So I think that's how I went into this one this morning. I was like, you know, I just got to get started. If it looks good, it looks good. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We're all going to have pages that we're probably not completely satisfied with, but it's good practice. And, you know, we get better. So I would just continue to encourage you to, you know, not be worried. Try not to worry too much about that. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, you don't want to buy books continuously, and you don't want to have to replace every book that you buy, but come on, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, you don't like your page, so you can get another book. I would, though, suggest something that I've done is that if you know that you do have a personal favorite in a book that's untouched, maybe don't color that one first, because you might want to get used to that artist's artwork, and you might want to get used to the paper and feel out the mediums that work well for you or the brand or whatever it is, and then work your way up. I will say that I try to do that. I try not to just go to my favorite page in the book and do that one first. I usually reserve that for later. So anyway, that's chit chat on my first ever experience using watercolor as a base in fairy tales and folklore. I'm going to send future me off to connect on the end of this video with what the finished page looks like, and maybe I'll throw in some of me actually working on it too. I'm not sure yet, but like I said, the watercolor, I've only ever used it as like either a background, and then I've used watered down acrylic, but never like watercolor from a pan like this. I've also used it as not as a base, but just to color with. And I think it was the Lulu Mayo Kawaii Cuties, A Million Little Kawaii Cuties. There were some little parts, little spaces where I used the metallic Kuretake watercolor just to color in some spaces, but that's different. So never a whole page like this. So, yeah. All right. We'll see ya. Hey, I'm back, and I wanted just to go over a few more tips and technique with the watercolor before I finish this page up. I thought it only fair because when I was describing the fur earlier, I was talking about flick, and that's not exactly what I'm doing. So I wanted to clarify. So first of all, what I was using to apply the watercolor is this water brush pen. And you can get these in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. Different brands carry them, and you can also get an inexpensive version from your dollar stores and like a Hobby Lobby. This one might be a Hobby Lobby. You fill the barrel with water, and then when you want to wet the brush tip, you can apply some gentle pressure and it'll come out through the barrel into the tip. So when you're ready to start applying watercolor, you would just add a little bit of water to your pan and let that sit for a little bit so that the paint has a chance to get soft. So you are going to want to wait for a little while, like a minute or so, let that get soft, and then you can start to apply the paint to your brush. So after applying a little bit of paint to the tip, what I was doing was kind of using a brush stroke like this to give the appearance of fur. Not flicking, okay? I just want to be clear. Flicking is a technique that is used with painting, but that is not what I did here. It's light brush stroke movement. And that wasn't necessarily the same technique that I use when I'm just filling in color for like the petals here. Just kind of doing a smooth movement here and just trying to get it all colored in. So yeah, so I wanted to make sure that that was understood for you all. If you're a beginner like me and new to watercolor medium, that's basically what I've been doing. And you can use a normal brush. Like this set comes with a couple brushes, and that's fine too. But I really enjoy using these, and it's really handy to have the water in the barrel so that you can use it when you're ready. And even I didn't have a cup of water or anything this time when I was painting. I just used a paper towel to wipe any excess color, or if I'm changing colors, wiping the color off of the brush. And if you are concerned about there being still a little bit of transfer or color on the tip, you could just apply some water, squeeze down on the barrel, get that wet again, and then wipe it off. So that's very convenient. So, all right, now to finish the page. Okay, I'm back, and I am nearly done with this page. So I'm here for the big reveal and to do a little bit of finishing touches, and I'm very excited. So, ta-da! All right, here is what we've got going on with the Prismacolor pencil over top of the watercolors that I used from Target. The Mondo Llamas, I think it's a 32 set of basic chalk. It's in like it's for any age really, but you know, children's arts and crafts there at the Target. And so I think it looks gorgeous. Let me talk you through it a little bit. What I was going to say was to finish up, I think some of the fur looks a little harsh. And by that, I mean like the fur lines the basing of it needs to be like colored in maybe a little bit. On camera right here, it looks actually pretty good. In some of the photographs, I felt like maybe there's bald spots, right? So I was going to try to go back and color that in a little bit, but not too much and not too dark, because I want you to still be able to see the fur. But other than that, and then I have not decided if I'm going back behind to add any background effect with additional watercolor or stamp ink or like a ground floor here. I'm not sure yet, but I'm nearly finished. All right, so let me just tell you about this last part here. I didn't love everything about putting the Prismacolor on top of the cheaper, inexpensive watercolors, and let me tell you why. So it looks really good, I think, right? Maybe you agree. Hopefully you agree that it does look really good. And I'm going to start to zoom in just so you can get maybe like a better idea of everything. So some sections where you apply the pencil over top the watercolor that is dried did some flaking. So you had some thick and thin areas, and as soon as you started coloring in, some of the watercolor was flaking off. And let me tell you, the big aha was trying to erase anything. So I think the first thing I did with the pencil was the flower petals. And I think I just chose a color that I wasn't completely satisfied with. No, it was the green underneath the petal at the top of the stem. So I chose a couple greens and I wasn't completely satisfied with them. And so I took the eraser to the pencil, and that did not work out great. So I think in this situation, at least with these pencils, with the Prismacolor and these watercolors, the cheaper, inexpensive watercolors, that I would not advise to erasing anything that you do once you put the pencil over top. That didn't seem like that was going to be a good activity. So I stopped that. Once I realized it, I was like, okay, no more of that. This will be like my first shot. I've got to get it right because it's not going to take well to erasing. And so from then on out, I just took a scrap piece of paper that was similar in color and used to test some of the pencil just to make sure I was getting the right shade that I wanted. So usually I can just start coloring a little bit at a time, and that'll be just fine, because if it's not a shade that I like, then I can erase it and start over. So yeah, erasing was problematic. The flaking was a little problematic in certain areas. Other than that, because I told you like the texture, it had a texture of the paint, so it took the pencil pretty well. It laid down pretty well. I will say another thing that I learned was that I felt like this was a scenario that I made the most use of my blender pencil. And this one is the Prismacolor Premier Colorless Blender pencil. I used it on almost everything on this page, almost everything, not quite everything, but almost everything where I applied pencil over top of the watercolor. I tended to blend it, and I felt like that made it look better. And it kind of blended into the paint, the watercolor based paint. My cat is meowing in the background. Can you hear him? I think he's hungry. But that's just too bad, Drogan, because I'm filming right now. So, sorry. So yeah, the blending and that, I didn't mind that. I think I'm glad that I had a tool for blending. So I have this one, and I have another one that I haven't used yet, which is like a wet blending pen. It's more like a marker that is double-sided. It has two different tip sizes. So did a lot of blending. The color on the fur, so this is what I was going to show you. So when I got to the fur, came back here, you recall I had kind of started some of that with the watercolor brush strokes. This is Burnt Ochre, PC 943, and it matched pretty well with the color that I was wanting. I did a couple different things with the fur here, and this was really new for me. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then I'm also going to get like a scrap piece of paper so I can just kind of show you. So on the edges or like creases, corners where you know you want it to be a little bit darker, I kind of went in first and then blended that in. And then for the fur, I kind of did one of these things where you make a up and down mark like this, and I just did that like randomly all over the areas, and then in some sections I didn't even do that. I just kind of did one of these like small little hash marks. So, and then that really didn't look right until I blended it. And when I blend, I use the same kind of movement up and down as the pencil had been laid down. So I did that. And that's how I was able to get this effect here, was by doing some of that up and down movements randomly, and then blending it out in the same direction. And like, here's where you can see I just did some one hash marks sections. Some of this that looks a little blotchy because that's the watercolor underneath. I figured out what happened here, guys. So the blue is from a cheap Dollar Tree gel pen that was leaking in my pencil case. It wasn't this one. And yes, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. But I have like and it was before Andy Reid and before Kelsey, okay? Long-standing Kansas City Chiefs fan. My husband's a fan, so it's by marriage. So I had a cup like this holding gel pens, and the other day when I took out the gold for working on this page for the little accents, which hopefully I went over this again a second time, where there's the gold glitter gel pen, and I ended up using the jelly roll. So I went over that again because I felt like it needed another layer. But when I took that pen out, I figured it out later because I got it on my shirt and it was all over my table. So the bottom, it had leaked out into the bottom of the cup. And then as I kept looking, I was like, oh my gosh, that thing leaked in there. So I took all the pens out of the cup, pens, pencils, whatever. I had a bunch of different things in there. Took them out of the cup and wiped them off with like a Clorox wet wipe, and then rinsed the cup, and crisis averted. Thank goodness that's the only thing that happened to this page, because it could have been way worse. But I'm sure you all probably have examples of like sad incidents involving little accidents like that. But yeah, then later I saw it was on my shirt, and then I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, it's on my desk. What in the heck? But yeah, I figured that out. So sorry, I didn't mean to digress. But anyway, I really liked how this turned out. I didn't actually go back and fill in everything on top, like the stems of the flowers. I kind of left alone. I just did some spot shading. What in the world? Sorry. I gotta get used to this. Woo. Okay. So I didn't do everything, but I think it's gorgeous. And so what I will do now is I took photographs of the photo after I had applied all the watercolor base. And then I have a photograph of the pencil on top. And so I'm going to share now a side-by-side of the two completed versions, the in process and the finished. And you tell me, which do you like better? I do like it better with the pencil on top. I think the colors pop. It's much more vibrant. However, I did enjoy coloring with the watercolor, and I really liked how it turned out. So I think in the future, I may just completely color some pages using only watercolor, maybe some gel pen. So I'm not opposed to it. I actually think it's a different look completely, and definitely the colors are muted. But I mean, that took long enough, right? I mean, like, I think the basing took me a couple hours. Granted, I was watching YouTube videos. And then the pencil on top took another couple hours. So, I mean, that's not always the amount of time I have to spend doing a page, but I really enjoyed the process. And so yes, I will be purchasing some more watercolors, trying out some that are a little more expensive, and seeing how that goes, because I really enjoyed it and I thought that looked great. So I recommend. I really, overall, this process, I would give a thumbs up. I didn't have any major hiccups with the watercolors themselves or with the pencil. Now, if I really want to experiment, and I know that there's probably some videos out there where people have already done this. I mean, you could try different pencils and see, or try the different watercolors and see kind of how it goes, because they're all going to be different. And then the paper, like I said, the paper is going to be different too. So anywho, I'm happy with my first page ever in fairy tales and folklore, and I'm excited to work on some more. I have another one picked out that I'd like to do for the month of November, and maybe if the mood strikes me, I'll do some more in here and then in some of my other books as well using this technique. So thanks for joining me on this adventure into using some inexpensive watercolors for the first time. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to my channel. Check out some of my other videos. I've got quite a few that I have done since I joined the YouTube scene back in July, I want to say. So please check that out. That's all I'm gonna do for this video, so I will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much and happy coloring. Bye guys.